The Partial Breakaway Podcast with your hosts Nick and Junior and producer Vince, bringing you elite fantasy hockey information to help you win your fantasy leagues and win at life.
Episode 67. Let's go.
1967.
67.
Max Pacioretty?
Not quite. Not quite.
Not what you were going for?
No, it's, I think it's like a drought. Someone has like a drought.
Lawson Krause.
No, not quite.
No. Okay.
Frolik?
Frolik? Yeah.
Yeah, that could be a good trivia game. Let's keep naming players who had the number 67.
Do you know of any?
But I know the Leafs haven't won the cup till the 67.
All right, just come out and say it.
All right.
Guys, welcome to the Partial Breakaway Podcast. I am your host, Nick. This is the host, Junior, to my left. And to the right is the Leaf hater, Mr. Vince. You could always add him at Vincenzo _, Partial Breakaway Podcast.
Hey, since you
Like
guys
when
have been...
just give fake
I was going to give you a real phone number, but then I'm like, that might be a bit much.
Since
Your wife
you've-
might not be happy with me.
Since you've been blabbing that I'm a secret Leafs fan, might as well go out and say they're going to win the cup this year and break their drought.
I heard they already planned the parade, and you're the leader. In
Yes,
the front
Dan's
with the
going to
flag.
hook me up with the
Dan's gonna
right
hook you up?
connections. Yeah.
Good. You know, it's good that you actually branch out a little bit. We hate you as a Habs fan. Guys, welcome to this episode. It's a jam-packed episode, and the reason is...
Trade.
Trade. Lots of trades happened this week in our LPHL.
A big trade happened in the NHL.
Big trade in the NHL, which actually prompted everybody in LPHL to start trading maybe. Then there was a trade that we did in the DPR, Dobber Prospects League.
Yeah, Victor's League.
Victor Nuno's League. We did a big trade over there. Just fix the camera. It's a little bit blurry there. And we have some waiver wire pickups that we're going to be suggesting as well in this episode. Guys, before we get started, I did want to mention a couple of people reached out to me saying, like they want to support the episode. They want to support us. They know that we're amateurs and we're not doing this for any money.
We just do this to get away from our wives.
Exactly. And we give out the episode free, obviously.
And we can say this because we know our wives don't listen to this.
That's also very true. No support from the wife.
I'll make sure to clip that and put it on social.
So, guys, if you do want to contribute or you want to help out the episode, we won't give you something for nothing. You could always reach out to us. We have merch available. We're getting more merch on the store.
Yeah, we're going to
possibly
have
coming out soon.
an online store hopefully by the end of the week.
Okay.
Hopefully.
And if we still don't have it up, you can still DM us, message us, let us know that you want something. We'll let you know the prices and whatever of anything that you want.
But most importantly, share our content, like our content.
That's it. So
Subscribe.
if you don't want to do a monetary donation to the podcast, don't worry about it. We still have you covered. Just hit us up with a like and a subscribe.
And share our content.
Share,
Yeah,
yeah.
share our content is big.
It's
huge.
a big way that you can help us out. It
It's
doesn't
an
have to be
endorsement in itself.
monetary.
And if you have
It's
to lie
endorsement.
to say that Nick's waiver wire pickups are amazing, just lie and just share it.
I heard that I got the win this week and you got a
you
loss.
did. Yeah, it's about time.
Let's get it started.
In due time, people. In due time. Let's go.
Let's go. Man, what a big trade.
Wow. I was rattled, man.
Yeah.
I can't wait to get to it. I was rattled.
Pretty sure McKinnon was rattled as well.
I don't think so. I think they contacted McKinnon before.
No, well, according to the
Guys, we'll get to it.
interviews-
We'll get to it. Come on.
According to
Oddman
the
Rush.
interviews-
Oddman Rush. Who's Nick? You're a host.
No, I'm not. I hosted last week, Oddman Rush.
Says
didn't I?
Nick.
right,
Did I
doesn't
not
matter.
change it?
Nah, I
Okay.
probably
No,
didn't.
I hosted it last week.
Okay, doesn't matter. All right, let's go with the odd man rush, guys. So, big one this week is Tristan Jarry Was that like the worst contract signed by Dubas, or was it just one of many?
Wasn't
Because
Dubas who signed?
Jerry, yes,
He signed,
yes,
it was one of his first signings after he was GM.
It was his first signing.
I don't know how he's still a GM. This guy.
So he was basically dropped by Pittsburgh. He went on waivers, and they sent him down to the minors
Yeah, well.
this week.
So in turn,
In turn, Nedeljkovic gets a goal. Is that what you were going to say? Or
no, that we did the same.
we actually did the same in DPR show. Yeah, you're absolutely right. In the DPR league, Victor Nuno's league that we have with Dauber Prospects, we dropped Jerry straight up. And you know what? Maybe we could have gone and maybe done some digging to see if we could grab a 5th round pick from someone that might still be interested in thinking that Jerry has a bounce back. But guys, how many chances are you going to give this guy?
Yeah, I messaged you right away. He's like, you asked us, should we trade him or drop? I was like, just like drop. It's not even worth the headache of trying to negotiate for something. Like, look, he might come back and be good, but it's not worth to keep.
Too much of an uphill battle for him to be relevant in fantasy right now.
And they're not a good enough team that they would buy him out to save cap, right?
Exactly.
So it's like a terrible situation.
To be honest with you, we don't really care that much for the DPR league for that goalie position because we have Wallstat waiting in the wings.
Interesting.
So that's going to be big. We already have Shesterkin. Yeah.
And we have Nedeljkovic.
We have Nedeljkovic, who's his replacement, I guess, right, as a starter. So if Nedeljkovic is out there and you need a goalie that gives you starts, maybe that's somebody that you go out and pick up more regularly now. And the other part of it is we also traded for Ingram, which we'll talk about. He's going to be maybe our bridge goalie until Wallstat is ready. It's funny how Jerry just gets dropped straight up. It's funny. I never heard of that before. But
Didn't he get like 3 consecutive shutouts this year or something? 3 shutouts in 8 games.
we should have traded him then.
Yeah, we should have traded him then.
All right, Colorado. So Junior likes to throw these silly things, and supposedly Biz Nasty does as well, where he thinks that Crosby is going to go to Colorado. And
it wasn't Junior.
Oh, was it you? Oh, shoot. So these
For
are
once,
silly
there was no
people.
TMZ Junior.
I love how Nick just threw Junior under the bus thinking it
Because
was
usually
Junior.
Junior has these silly takes. I'm saying silly not to say stupid, but I should say stupid takes. But I guess today is your stupid take. So why don't you talk to us about your stupid take?
It's not a stupid thing. It's a take that was on Twitter, or on X,
Paul Bissonnette.
Yeah,
which
Biz
was
Nasty.
on X, which was I think it's the highest rated real news app in the world.
Hey, since Trump has been president, Elon Musk.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it's just funny how as soon as Rantanen,
politics.
It's just funny how as soon as Rantanen got traded, the rumors were starting that Crosby, they're making space so Crosby can play with McKinnon because they're both from the same city.
It's a pretty cool dream.
Listen, the dream. We all have a dream, but this dream ain't happening. I think we can all admit that Crosby is not moving from Pittsburgh.
Correct.
Well,
they've already come out and said it that he's not available.
Right.
And Malkin's not available.
The GM of the Colorado Avalanche came out and obviously in his first interview since the trade and pretty much said there was a clear lack of depth on that team. And that was the purpose of the trade other than probably contract negotiations.
All right.
The best segue, Nick. Go ahead.
Well, talking about trades, because we're going to be talking about trades all day today.
All day, every day.
What are the chances that one of these players gets traded? Okay. I'm going to ask this to you, Junior. Bowen Byram, Dylan Cozens, Brock Nelson, Jake Evans. What is the most likely and the least likely to get traded?
Least likely, Jake Evans. I think Montreal really likes him, and they're going to try to find a way to sign him.
Well, you never know, right? Supposedly Rantanen was really liked in Colorado,
well,
too.
you know what? I have my sources. 100% Brock Nelson gets traded. 100% Dylan Cousins and Bowen Byram get traded for Elias Pettersson.
Wow, that's a take. This is why I don't ask you questions. Yeah,
That's so ridiculous. That's more ridiculous than Crosby going to Colorado.
The base of that reply was that Buffalo, according to Elliot Friedman, Buffalo was in on Pettersson.
right.
That
that's true.
was the
part's
premise of my take.
Yeah.
No, listen, I think Jake Evans gets traded. If Montreal is smart enough, they'll trade it. They'll trade. He's high. They're high
On
and-
what?
Guys, I missed one of the segues that you were talking about because somebody had crossed it out before I got there. But Penguins fire sale. Who's the most likely to move, and who is the least likely to move?
Raquel, Rust,
Most likely Raquel.
We're not talking Crosby. We're not talking Malkin. Those are off the table already.
Raquel, Rust, most likely. Least likely Carlson, just because of his contract, and I don't think Pittsburgh wants to hold on to his contract.
I think Bunting is also on his way out. I think someone will pay for Bunting.
But he got sent down, didn't he? On waivers.
No, that was in our actual pool, not in
no,
the
that was in a.
Got
Yeah,
sent
no,
down
that was
somewhere.
listener bats.
Bunting will probably get traded. I think, Eric Carlson's too complicated to get done.
It's
Pittsburgh
hard.
I
doesn't
don't
wanna
put it
hold
past
salary.
some teams to try to do it, but it'll be too difficult.
But even with a 50% retention, you're like, this was a bad move by Dubas. It was just a bad move. I don't know what he was thinking. Anyways, he's a good player, but he hasn't been good in a while. I don't know.
And there was no retention when he took him, so it was just...
Yeah. All right. Barzal. I don't know if you guys saw the clip, but
Yeah.
there was some lip reading happening here, and it didn't look like Barzal was too happy with the attendance in the island.
Do you know why people speak like this? Players, they always have their gloves under so that people can't lip read them.
Especially in the NFL,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah. Soccer, same thing. It's every sport you see. All you see is players going like this or with their jerseys, like how, like that. I think it was a boneheaded. Mind you, was it? I don't think
We don't even know if he really said it, right?
Yeah.
This is lip reading.
lip reading. Yeah, exactly. But still, if he did say it, and it's a just boneheaded comment.
Guys, I'm telling you right now, if Barzal leaves the island, whether it's because he asked for a trade or because of something else, I see him being a point per game player the rest of his career. I think the island is what's keeping him back. And I'm not saying that because he's not a great finisher. He's a volume shooter, but he's always in the right space, in the right time. He's the go-to guy on a line. I just feel that if he goes to another team, he would just produce more. From a fantasy perspective, especially.
I don't feel like they did a good job, enough of a job to get him some help.
Yeah.
He's a good player. He could help those around him, but I think he needs like
No, he needs a setup
a
guy.
Rantanen, or he needs something.
I
setup
don't think. I think.
Say it, Marner.
I think.
You've said it 3 episodes in a row. I thought you were gonna.
I think Lula Morello needs to go.
Sorry, guys, just a correction. Carlson, the trade did have retention, 1.5 million. I don't know what the percentage
yes,
is, but
that's
it was
right.
it was a small percentage.
It's like a puny
He's still there
percentage
at
of his
10 million.
salary.
The cap hit is 10 million for
Yeah.
Pittsburgh. Yeah,
Talking about cap hits, McDavid has a big one, but he got suspended for 3 games. Do we? Look, we're mentioning it on Odd Man Rush because it happened, and we didn't have a chance to talk about it during the week because we only do our episodes once a week. Again, guys, buy some merch if you want us to do episodes more.
toque, caps, hoodies, you name it, we got it.
because
Jerseys.
Because we need to give the money to our wives, so they'll allow us
To
to
allow
do it
us.
twice a week.
McDavid suspension, guys. Did you think it warranted a suspension?
Okay. I think there was things that happened this year that were a lot worse than McDavid. But yes, I think it's worth a suspension. But now, is that going to be held as the go-to for any other incident that happens now?
No, because it's the
This-
NHL.
but this is the problem.
There's
So
no
now,
consistency.
if anybody does slightly what McDavid did or worse, and the repeat offenders, it can't be 1 or 2 games anymore. You're going to 6 to 8 to 10 games. And that's where I don't think the NHL is going to sustain it.
So the repeat offender. Okay,
You go.
No, you say it, my friend.
You'll articulate it better.
No, I've spoken too much already this odd man. Rich. You say it.
No, but I'm afraid to miss out on some things. But basically, the repeat offender is not a standard for suspension, right?
Yes.
And I don't recall what else he added. But Elliot
So
Friedman
Elliot
explained
Friedman
it on
explained
32 Thoughts.
what it actually is. It's not. They don't add games because you're a repeat offender, but it's something to do with the fee that you have
Yes,
to pay.
exactly. If you get fined and the fee, being a repeat offender, sometimes they'll do it by
32
game
Thoughts,
or
the
by
podcast.
paycheck. Honestly,
good
32
podcast.
Thoughts, the podcast is fantastic. Listen, by the way, it's
if you're
twice a
hockey
week
nerd
or
like
weekly.
us,
But so definitely a suspension. Anytime you cross check someone in the face, it's a suspension.
I think so.
Let's
I
be
think
honest.
So. But I just 3 games felt a lot
And
to me.
the game before, he also had a bit of like a
but-
switch where he lost it.
Guys,
so
guys,
it
the
was a
guy
build up,
He gets
and
held every play. He basically gets hugged or tackled every play. Like Garland was on him. Like
I would, if I was
NHL,
McDavid, I would do that again.
yeah.
Because if the refs are not
Show
going to
some teeth.
protect him and protect the league and protect the offense, because clearly everyone's look. Every time he plays Montreal, I keep an eye on him because I enjoy watching him.
What a player to watch.
They tug, they hold, they get in his way.
The
Like
NHL is the worst league in protecting the superstars.
yes,
In the NBA, if any of these things happen to LeBron James compared to McDavid, people will be sent out of the league. But NHL,
In the NFL,
well, look at the
somebody
three-piece
breathes-
Mahomes.
if
two
somebody-
things are keeping the NHL.
If somebody breathes on Mahomes.
Mahomes, exactly. Two things are two things are keeping the NHL out of the like. It's they don't promote their players properly and they don't protect their star players.
Shout out
Agreed.
to
Agreed.
the Bush League podcast.
Yes.
They've been keeping it up.
despite the fantasy season being over, they've been very busy with prop bets and pretty accurate too on most of them. The Bush League Huddle on
Bush League
all
Huddle.
podcast platforms. Have a listen.
Yeah, fun episodes lately.
Raj, Knack, and Fab.
That's right.
Guys, that was a pretty unusual odd man rush. We didn't usually do our
Yeah, but you know
your
what?
take, my take, but it was a little. It's,
I prefer it sometimes to be a conversation. Right?
We have a trade to announce.
all right, let's
Let's
go.
get into the trade. So who's hosting the trade?
This is my
The actual NHL trade that
my department.
shocked the entire fantasy world.
Guys, I was rattled. So my first ever dynasty league was Loose Pucks, which I'm commissioner of, and I started with your help, both of you. And I drafted McKinnon and Rantanen, thinking I would have these guys together forever. I mean, I still own them both, but I thought they would be, McKinnon gets a point. I already know Rantanen has a point.
Double jeu.
Double jeu, double whammy, you name it, whatever you want to name it. I thought I was getting double the points on every Colorado goal.
Yeah.
And that's over. So the second I saw that, I was absolutely rattled. So I'm going to tell you guys what the trade was officially for those who might still not know. Carolina receives Mikko Rantanen at 50% retention and Taylor Hall of the Chicago Blackhawks. Colorado receives Martin Necas, Jack Drury, a second pick in 2025 and a fourth pick in 2026. These are both Carolina's picks. Chicago, who retained 50% of Rantanen's salary and gave Taylor Hall to Carolina, receives a third-round pick. Which, if you guys want, because we won't talk.
It's their own third round.
Exactly. So it's their own third-round
So it's
pick, which
kinda
makes
like
it a bit
a-
more valuable. It's almost like a late second, if you wish. I know. I think they could have had maybe a little bit more, but anyhow, considering the impact this deal would have around the NHL, you would think maybe they could have had a little bit more. But shall we? Do you guys want to add something to the Chicago aspect of things? Because we're not going to touch on that again.
Well, I agree with you that they could have gotten more. For me, a third round pick for retaining 50% of the salary, sure. But then was Taylor Hall just a salary dump? Or
That's what I mean. Like that's what it
Did you
felt
just
like.
get rid of Taylor Hall because nobody wants him? Like you couldn't get anything for Taylor Hall? Like it seems a bit.
You don't
lacking.
need to. You don't need to salary dump.
Get another
if you're
freaking
Chicago.
third. Get another third. I don't know.
I think they threw in Taylor Hall because I think Chicago is finally starting to make their young guys get the ice time that they need. Like the
Nazar is looking
like
good.
Nazar was playing third line minutes because there was no space on the top two. Now Hall is not there anymore, so he's up on the top two.
You think so?
Colton, yeah, for sure. Why keep Taylor Hall? I'm pretty sure they did their homework on Taylor Hall,
Yeah.
and there wasn't much happening. So at this point, they said just give him.
The last
away.
thing I'll say about that is prior to the season, it was clear Davidson said these young guys, we were giving them spots, but they hadn't earned them. And so going into this season, he said, we want our young guys to earn their spots. So Nazar started in the AHL, got called up. And to me, this tells me he's earned his spot.
Well, I just want to add to that. So I went on Daily Faceoff just to take a look at what the lineups are now that Taylor Hall's not there anymore. Frank Nazar, top line with Bedard and Bertuzzi. So
First
to your
power play.
point,
And he scored today.
to your point, he's being given opportunities. So
Colton Dock too.
Colton Dach
Got
is in there.
called.
Yeah.
Had a good few games. Is staying up. So
That's two Smash Bros players right there.
okay.
Interested? Well, Doc?
Not really. Go.
All right, guys. Okay, so let's start with the Carolina aspect of things. All right.
I'm done trading for a while. Actually, I'm still waiting for a trade to go through right now. But anyways,
So from Carolina's perspective, okay, the lines changed from their first game to now. Like during the first game already, Brendan Moore said, we're going to try different things until we find what sticks.
yeah.
What do we think of Rantanen in Carolina? Can he produce as much as he did with Colorado? More or less the same or more? Like, what do we expect from him there? And based off right now, I'll say what the lineup is, but he's on the line with Aho and Jackson Blake. In his first game, it started with Svechnikov at the place of rookie Jackson Blake. So basically, what do we think of Rantanen in Colorado in terms of production alone?
I think that if you look at the number one power play unit, and you could throw out there Rantanen with an Aho, a Svechnikov, a Seth Jarvis, and I don't know, Brett Burns, I guess, Gostisbehere, I guess, whatever. That's power. That is a great power play. I just think that this is you got an uber superstar, right? Uber and super is the same word, but you got yourself a superstar. And I know Necas was having an absolutely phenomenal season, so don't get me wrong, but Rantanen is Rantanen, right? Necas could fall off at any moment here back to a more respectable pace, whereas Rantanen is just really amazing. What hurts Carolina, and I don't want to get too much into it because I know you're going to be asking the questions, but you replace Necas with Rantanen, but your center depth is kind of like meh. The rest of your line is meh. I don't know. Taylor Hall's on your fourth line, by the way.
I think Rantanen is going to find out he's not playing with McKinnon anymore in Carolina. And not only because of the stature of McKinnon, obviously Carolina doesn't have a Nathan McKinnon on their team, but also the style of play they play. Colorado is a more freewheeling, let's go out there, skate, especially on the McKinnon line, like there was no restrictions. Brendan Moore is a very
Defensive.
was
coach.
not defensive, but very structured coach. So you got to stay within his structure to play well, and it holds some players back. So I think we need to be. I think people need to be patient with Rantanen. I think the first month of this with Carolina is going to be a struggle because he's getting used to a new system, a new structure that he needs to stick with.
New teammates.
New teammates also, and like I said, yes, that power play might look good, but there's no McKinnon on that power play. There's no McCarr. So the thing with Colorado is when you're on Colorado's power play, you have McKinnon, McCarr. You already have two players that teams are focused on, and Rantanen is the third. Here, they're not focusing on the Aho, Svechnikov, and stuff like that, right? Now they're going to be focusing directly on Rantanen because he's the star player on that power play. So I feel he's going to produce. Rantanen is not a Mitch Marner. I mean, Rantanen is Rantanen is a player who can make. It's just I said that out loud. I thought the mic was off. Sorry, but no.
I don't get it. Do you like Mitch Marner or do you not like Mitch Marner?
Hold on.
No, we're not going there. I'm just saying, Rantanen, the first few months will be a struggle, like Gensel was when he joined Carolina. It is a hard system to adapt yourself to when you come from a freewheeling system. So it's a hard system.
So what I thought would happen is that he would play center because Rantanen has played center before, and seeing Carolina's depth chart, I was like, okay, they're gonna put him in at center. Either put Svechnikov or Jarvis on the top line with Aho, and then one of them will play with Rantanen. So when I saw him play, by the way, major plus that he's playing left wing. So now most fantasy leagues out there, Rantanen's going to be a right wing, left wing. If he stays, if he plays enough games as left wing, that's a huge plus. I know for me that I'm dying for left wingers, it's a huge plus. But so I was expecting a little bit of that. But I think you're underrating Aho a little bit. He's still a very good player.
Very, very consistent.
I never said he was.
I think Rantanen will look much better along the sides of like a Suzuki, but
All right. He just had to throw his stupidity in there somewhere. Guys, one thing, who gets a boost in production because of this trade in specifically Carolina? I know you're the host, but
no, it's fine. It's fine. You're forgiven.
Guys,
Jackson Blake.
Aho I'm ignoring you. Aho gets the biggest boost here, doesn't he?
Personally, I don't think so. I think Aho will be Aho. Because it's very... You know what's difficult here is that Rantanen didn't sign an extension. So if you would have signed an extension and I knew he was there for the long run, I could say, you know what, maybe Aho's going to get a boost.
Well, we have half a season left.
One thing that worries me the most, and I talk about it often as every time something like this happens, is I hate when a player's been in one team for so long and then suddenly gets traded to another team. The adaptation takes a while. So, like, if they make the playoffs, by then, I think Rantanen will be acclimated with his team and his surroundings. He'll be more comfortable. But until then, I don't think Aho will get more points. I think he'll stay Aho. I think that's who he is. Now, if they start the next year with Aho and Rantanen, maybe he could get a little boost. Like, for me, Aho is a point per game player. Maybe he could go to 90 points. But that's how I see it. Do you guys think anybody else gets a boost in production?
I don't think anybody gets a boost in production until you find out who he really gels with.
Yeah.
Listen, if he gels with Aho, for sure, he's going to make Aho a better player and a more than point per game player. But it's not guaranteed that he can gel with Aho. That's what I'm saying. You got to give it a month for him to just feel it out. Even Brendan Moore said it, like Nick said at the beginning. They're gonna feel it out. They're gonna see which players blend better, and try to get the best combination possible.
So we tend to get excited.
Always.
When there's a big trade like this that happens, we get to get excited. We tend to get excited. And I think that's what happened with me as well. And a big trade like this happened. I see Rantanen in Carolina.
Nick trades for Aho.
I trade for Aho immediately.
Well, Nick, I'm not gonna lie. I me and my duels, right? I have McKinnon and Rantanen. So the second I heard Aho might have been available, what's the first thing I did? I went to see him. But had Rantanen had the extension, I would have went all in. But I was afraid that he might not sign there. Anyhow, okay. So now we spoke about who might get a boost in production, but does anyone suffer a dip in production because
in Carolina,
so we're sticking with Carolina. We'll do Colorado in a minute, but so in Carolina, with the addition of Rantanen and the losses of Natchez and Jury, does anyone dip in production?
Yes. Go ahead. And I would say, listen, Svechnikov hasn't been producing from what he's been producing. But I would say, I was tempted to say Jarvis, but I just feel Jarvis is he's a player that can create on his own. So I think Svechnikov suffers.
Svechnikov is on a 56-point pace.
That's why.
How much worse can he get?
But he could. But that's the thing. People think that he's the one that's gonna be like when he was drafted. Nick, he was what? He was rated to be
$8 million. Almost.
I
$7.8
really
million.
liked Svechnikov in this draft here, man.
Listener Umbi went all out to get Svechnikov. Doesn't want to trade him for anything less than 3 firsts.
Rumor has it he was offered in a deal.
For
I don't know who it was for.
It was for the guy you got in the end.
Was it Marchenko?
Yeah.
But I think it's listen. I think Seth Jarvis and the Nekash combination was a really good one, and they were really steady. Jarvis and Nekash together. Jarvis loses his partner, but I just feel Jarvis last year was a bit everywhere and still produced so well. So that's why I feel Carolina's secondary scoring is in trouble. it's in trouble right now. Nekash was their secondary scoring, and they're in trouble right now.
Man, I would just love it if Brendan Moore loads his top line.
Yeah.
Just Svechnikov, Rantanen, and these are big boys, eh? Both of them are big boys.
He just has a hard head. He doesn't like doing it.
Yeah.
So the person who, he's not a big fantasy producer. He's not a big point producer. But anytime he did get points, it's when he was on a line with Natchez. KK, any points he got was when he was on a line with Natchez. And this last week, I don't know why, but they were on fire. The both of them were on absolute fire together. So the little points he was getting, I'm afraid he might not get them anymore. Sorry.
Can we say that fantasy wise, in a fantasy hockey podcast, KK does not have any value?
No. None.
Right? He doesn't produce enough.
No.
And there was a rumor he was part of the deal, and then suddenly
They
it
asked for
became
Drury.
Jack Drury. Yeah. So everyone was saying he's not even good enough to be an extra in the trade. Okay, so we spoke about Carol. Do you guys want to add anything else before we move on?
Let's
Okay.
move on.
So
we have a lot of trades to go through.
let's go on to Colorado's side of things, which is going to be pretty interesting. So Colorado acquired Martin Natchez, Jack Drury. I mean, Jack Drury is not fantasy relevant, but I think he could be very valuable in other terms for Colorado. But we're going to skip it because we're a fantasy hockey podcast. Martin Natchez, can he keep up his pace with Colorado? This pace that he's on this year, which is his career year, almost 3 fantasy points a game plus. Do we think he could keep that pace up, improve it, or regress? Where do you guys stand with Martin Natchez? You got the first take on Carolina, so we'll give Vince the first take here because I feel like he's antsy.
Yes.
There's some ants in his pants. For
Oh,
sure.
yeah, that's right. Some,
Yeah,
even
little
some,
ant.
Or it's crabs. We're not sure yet.
But, well, you said it. Natchez was playing with KK. Natchez is upgraded from KK to McKinnon. It's like going from, I don't know, like...
Oh, wait. I want to hear
Yeah,
this metaphor.
this I have
Wait,
to hear.
I
This
gotta hear this metaphor.
elaborate, please. 'Cause I was. You're
ready
gonna start
for a
naming
metaphor.
girls. I feel like you were gonna name girls and actresses.
Yeah, girls.
So
and
let's
then-
go. The people want to know.
We are not going there. But
They're going
no,
from
he's-
who to Jessica
he's-
Alba? Tell me.
He's going. Yeah, Jessica Alba's old news. When I was young, she was big news.
You
but-
know who was big news? Cindy Crawford. When I was
Yeah,
young.
exactly. So, but no, I mean, he's going from KK to McKinnon, but not only
Is KK like a bra size or?
yeah. but not only McKinnon, he's going to McKinnon and on the power play Makar. The best defenseman in the NHL, a top 2 centerman. How can you possibly say that this guy's point is gonna diminish? It's only gonna improve.
Exactly what he said. Word for word, exactly what I was going to say. And the end of the day, guys, he literally went from playing second line, where he was producing everything on his own, to now having McKinnon as his center. And on the power play, you have a much stronger Makar there, who creates things. McKinnon creates things. Like, it's just amazing that I think Nekash actually improves his stock, where before I thought he was a regression candidate. Now I think he might actually keep up this pace.
He's on pace for 93 points, guys. So
might
if
keep
he
it.
keeps this, he's played 2 official games now with Colorado because they did play back to back Saturday, Sunday.
Hit a post.
-3, 0 points in the first game,
He hit a couple of posts. It's fine.
3 points in the second game.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know what to expect, but I do think he'll be productive. It's hard not to. Vince, the one thing I'll say to what you were to counter what you were saying is. You're one of the first ones to say it's not easy to be the guy to play with McDavid or Crosby or whatever. 100%. So it might not be easy for Natchez to play with McKinnon, but I do think McKinnon is a little bit different from both of those other two. So let's carry on. Now, we spoke about Natchez in terms of production. Does anyone benefit from losing Rantanen, or I won't say necessarily the addition of Natchez, because no one really benefits from the addition of Natchez unless he's not playing with McKinnon. So unless you guys think he won't play with McKinnon, then someone might benefit. You guys tell me, does anyone benefit from the loss of Rantanen or the addition of Natchez from now till the end of the season, or maybe even next year?
Well, fantasy wise, I don't think so. I don't think there's any real take there. However, I'll say that the general manager of Colorado came out and basically said that from a team building aspect, Rantanen was asking for more money than McKinnon right off the bat. And so in his eyes, he felt that he wasn't deep enough to compete already. Giving $14 million to Rantanen would mean that his team would get even weaker on the secondary scoring, even weaker on the rest of the lineup. So to me, if you take a look, Drury fills in a nice third line role for that team. Necas replaces, even though it's a downgrade from Rantanen, he replaces a first line winger spot. And they also got a couple of draft picks in it, right? A second rounder and a third rounder. They also gained $1 million in salary space, right? Cap space, right? So I think in a real
For Crosby, right?
I think in a real NHL, that team building aspect, I think Colorado thinks that it's in a better position now moving forward. Necas has also signed one more year after this one at the same cap hit that he's at. But fantasy wise, I don't think there's any benefits.
I'll give you a name. Arturi Lehkonen. I think he benefits from Rantanen leaving, because now he gets top 6 forward. He gets top power play for Colorado. Listen,
Well, Drouin was there.
Yeah, he was already top power play.
Yeah,
with
no, it
Rantanen.
wasn't. It was Drouin and Rantanen.
Yeah, it was Drouin, Lehkonen, Rantanen, McKinnon, and
Yeah, but
McCarr.
it was. I still think Lehkonen is going to be not the big winner. Listen, do I think he's going to be fantasy relative? No.
Comes back, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think Nistushkin is the one who's going to really, once he comes back, I think flourish under this whole thing, whoever he plays with. But like Nick
And
said,
there's a possibility for Landeskog to be activated.
this is the big key, man. It's the Landeskog dilemma. Is he going to come back? I don't think they're going to bring him back before the playoffs, because they just can't with the salary they have. But this is not only for this year, but next year. If he comes back for playoffs, that means Landeskog's ready for next year. It's gonna be interesting.
I think it's very touchy to talk about Landeskog because 2 years is a long time. So like,
out
if
of
they
the
did
NHL,
this
man.
just to make space for him, I doubt it.
No, the $1 million won't make sense.
But so you guys spoke about like what you thought he would have, and we didn't plan on talking about this, but I did see a tweet, or I don't even know what to call it now that it's not Twitter, but I did see a tweet about the highest paid winger being Artemi Panarin at 11.6, and that Rantanen wanted to be the highest paid winger, but Colorado didn't want to pay him more than McKinnon. McKinnon at 12.5 or 12.6. But it's like, I mean, honestly, the way Rantanen was shocked that he was moved, and the way that Bednar and McKinnon were rattled that all this went down, because their interviews clearly showed they were rattled. I think something could have been had at, even if you tell Rantanen, I'll pay you as much as McKinnon, I don't think McKinnon would have cared. His best friend, his buddy of 9 years, his line mate of 9 years, stays on the team, gets paid as much as him. Fine. They produce, like it's two different eras, right? Rantanen is signing a deal based off the cap going up for the next, the cap's going to go up for the next 3 years consecutively. How high? Pretty high. Next year, I don't know.
That's what Toronto thought too before COVID.
No, guys, the cap will, they're going to renegotiate the cap in the CBA. You'll see next year there's going to be a big boost in the cap.
But I feel like you're putting a lot of on Colorado. No, it's fine. I'm in the camera. I feel you're putting a lot of pressure on Colorado, but Ratner was demanding Draisaitl money. Draisaitl money is 14 $14 to $15 million. It's a lot of money.
So
No, that's what he was
no,
demanding.
I
Don't say
agree.
it.
Yeah, but you start there. That's fine to start there. The way he was rattled, he would have accepted, I think, McKinnon money.
No, a player like Rantanen at 28 years old. If you're in it for the money, you're going to, even with Carolina. If Carolina offers you $14 million, if you're Rantanen, you say no, because you're going to UFA, and there is some team that's going to offer you more, because you're 28 years old, you're more than elite player. So if you're in it for the money, you're going. If he wasn't in it for the money, he would have said, no problem, I'll take less than McKinnon. $12 million a year. McKinnon's making what, 12.6?
So
I
Draisaitl signed
think Colorado
Did
Colorado
Draisaitl
didn't
sign?
want it. Wasn't serious.
8-year
about signing.
extension, 14 million.
So that it was Draisaitl.
Next.
14 million.
Kicks in next year.
So he wants 14
He's at
million.
8.5 right now.
Vince, you always start at a demand. It doesn't mean you end there.
Okay, guys, let's not get into it because it's not fantasy relevant unless you're in a cap league. But the fact,
Okay, so sorry, did you finish your thought, or were you moving on to the next one?
no. Does 14 million lower Rantanen's value? Because you're an owner, does it lower his value in a cap league?
You can't. Does it lower it? Maybe a little bit, but you can't just trade him because he makes more money. Just like you could go acquire a guy like Marchenko at 3.85 for 3 years that might get a point per game, might not. We'll see. You'll have those guys that you pay a little bit more, but that'll get you 90 points.
No, Rantanen is a 100-point player. He's not a 90-point player, guys.
I don't know if he's ever hit 100 points, but
No, for sure. I think twice.
I know he doesn't produce like McKinnon, that's for sure.
Yeah, but McKinnon produced on 120 points.
Yeah, or even 140 sometimes.
Yeah.
But no. So he might lose. Some GMs will think he loses value, and I think you could jump on that if you have the cap space. Would you agree, or
14 is a lot, man.
14 is a lot?
It's a lot. I mean, I will pay it for McKinnon, no problem.
Guys, 2022, 2023, 105 points. 2023, 2024, 104 points. 2024, 2025, 49 games, 64 points. He's a 100-point player.
100-point player.
Anybody who's a 100-point player, whatever you're paying him, he's worth it.
Yeah,
In fantasy.
you pay your
Okay.
stars.
Yeah, exactly.
So does
Okay, conclude.
anyone suffer from the loss of Rantanen? Basically, the only answer here would be, does McKinnon suffer? Because Rantanen was stuck to McKinnon, essentially.
Yes, but not drastically. But yes, he suffers because you're not going to say Nikash is a Rantanen, so 100%, but not drastically. I don't think he suffers drastically.
Man,
I
it's
think-
still McKinnon.
yeah, exactly.
To McKinnon.
It's so hard to say that. Okay, he drops 5 points, 10 points.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Like
like
I-
how much value are you gonna give it? The fact that he was playing with Rantanen.
And I don't think it'll affect McKinnon. I think McKinnon's the type that's gonna say like, "Really, you got rid of my guy?" Like he's gonna take that as like a chip on his shoulder
Yeah.
type of thing. Like the great players, they find any little excuse to give them that edge, and he'll use it in his favor. Okay, so to conclude the Rantanen deal. From now, a quick question for both of you. From now to the end of the season, who accumulates most points? And now we're not talking about who's better. We're not talking about like who's like. Just from now till the end of the season, take everything into consideration. Who gets more points, Natchez or Rantanen?
Who are you asking?
Both of you will answer. So whoever wants to go first.
I'll say Nick Cash is going to get more points than Rantanen until the end of the year, and the reason is because it's a lot harder to go into Carolina's system than it is to enter Colorado's freewheeling offensive system.
For once, I agree with Nick.
All right.
I think we're all on the same page there, unfortunately for me. All right. Last question. Is it realistic to think that Carolina can sign Rantanen to an extension at what might be 13, 14, anywhere between 12 and $14 million?
I know you had a take on this, and we kind of spoke about this off air. I know Orlov is off the books, so that's about $7 million.
They could.
So here I set this up. So off the books is going to be Taylor Hall at $6 million right now.
I have it here.
Roslovich 2.8, Robinson 950.
Whatever, yeah.
950
Don't
K.
even count
They have
those.
3 players at under 100 million that will be off the books.
Carolina's
Plus
cap,
Orlov.
after this year, Carolina's cap hit is going to be 56,791,875. Okay, that's their cap hit, and we're guessing the cap is going to 92.4 million right now.
And
'Cause
what's it
that's-
at?
No, it's at 88 million, and it's going to 92.4
At a minimum.
at a minimum. So that leaves Carolina
You know how he is.
It's going to be close to 97,
yeah,
guys.
I don't think so.
Whatever.
Cap remainings is 30. So they have about $35 million of cap for next year. The problem is with that cap, they only have 8 forwards signed, 4 defensemen, and 1 goalie. So that means they need to sign 10 players on a 23-man roster. You're giving Rantanen one Draisaitl money, so I went with Draisaitl money, which is $14 million. You give Rantanen $14 million, Carolina will have $21.5 million left to sign 8 players.
Well, 2 of those players will be on the entry-level contracts.
Nikishin and Morrow, who are 2 defensemen that are most likely going to make the jump next year at some point. Nikishin for sure because he's coming over.
He's coming over, yeah.
So that's a $1 million player.
So then you have 6,
Under $1 million.
Then you have 6 players left that you have about $18 million. That you have
They're
to
going to
sign
need a
for a
solid
23-man roster.
They're going to need
You're
a
still missing
solid goalie. Yeah, they're going to need a solid goalie to back up Kochetkov
Because-
or to be the 1A, 1B.
Yeah. And
I
then,
think you could find cheap goalies. I think.
I mean, it'll cost them 2-3 million for sure.
Yeah.
but it's defensively. Like their defense, I mean, right now is Slavin, Chatfield, Gottesberg, and Walker. Because Burns is out of contract and Orlov is out of contract.
And then you add Nikishin, who's the best defenseman in the KHL right now.
Yeah.
He could take a top 4 role immediately.
Yeah, but who's
Because
the
he's
other
older
guy?
as
As
well.
Morrow.
Yeah, but Morrow can't. Nikishin, I agree.
Bottom pairing Morrow for.
There is. Orlov is the same pairing. I think their depth is going to suffer. Carolina. Because even their top
We'll
six. Their top 6, you have Rantanen, Aho, Jarvis,
From everything that you've told
KK,
me.
Svechnikov, and you have nobody on the left.
And
From everything you've told me, it's possible. I'm not saying it's probable,
No, of course.
but it's possible.
Yeah.
the only thing is that it's unlikely Carolina does that.
Maybe they gave up a lot.
They
gave up a lot.
I think they gave up more than a lot. Like
know,
they just was on a nice contract, 6.2 that they fought,
6.5, but only for 2 years.
But only for this
Yeah,
year and
this
next
year
year.
and next.
but still they fought for him to just sign.
What with the season he just had, he was going to go up to 10. Or the season he's having, I should say. All right, guys, that I think we did a pretty good job summing up that blockbuster, like actual blockbuster.
I think we spent a lot of
In-season
time on it.
blockbuster. All right. Moving on to let's do our waiver wire pickups. Let's move on to that. Vince, you're up.
Yeah, let's go. So waiver wire pickup. So I'm just gonna last week's
Here
picks.
comes the money.
So Nick, is that the song?
That's what
Yeah,
we've been
that's the song.
using, you know.
Here
But
comes this
producer Vince,
Sleeping on the wheel.
no, he screws up one pick and that's it. There's no, he wants to get rid of this segment.
Here we go.
One pick to screw up.
Yeah. All right, so last week's pick. Nick Pavazaka was a 41% owned. 3 assists in 4 games, so that's a win for Nick.
Yay!
You go, Nick.
Applause. Too bad we don't have the
And
applause here.
well, Junior went with a really risk with Adam Godet, 11%.
11% owned.
It was
11%.
absolute horseshit.
Should have dropped to about 5% by now.
0 point.
0 points in 4 games.
And I went with Matt Coronado, who only played 3 games, 0 points also. So big.
0, 0, 0, 0.
So they all got big 0-0-0. So me and Junior got the loss. Nick got the win for once in his life.
What does that put us
So collectively, we are on 500, boys and girls. 15 wins, 15 losses, and 3 push.
I think we need to get better.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we definitely need to get better. So this week's waiver pickups. So
Next year.
Next year, oosh, I wish.
We said
Okay,
that
so
last year.
This year's
No, we didn't count last year.
this week's waiver pickups.
jeez.
I went with Jaden Schwartz from Seattle. Simple, 4 games they're playing. I'm going back to my old strategy of picking players from teams that play the most games during the week. Jaden Schwartz, 4 games, plays first line, plays first power play. Seattle seems like they're a bit on a hot run by scoring goals. So 34% taken, I got him. Nick went with a guy who had high hopes in Arizona and now Utah, Barrett Hayton. He's a 39% taken, but he's turning it up. He's playing top 6, power play. So we'll
Since
see.
the Gwenter injury.
Yeah,
he's,
since the Gwenter
picked it up.
injury. So we'll see. They only play 3 games, if I'm not mistaken, this week.
That's right.
And Junior, since he saw I got 0-0-0 last week, he decided to go with the same player as I did.
By the way, Baron Hayton has 6 points in his last 4
4
games.
games. So there you go.
And he's playing against Pittsburgh. St. Louis has 2 of the games out of the 3. So I'm hoping for...
So Junior went with Matt Coronado, 40% owned, 1% more after I took them. So a lot of people took my advice, at least 1%. And
Look, basically, Coronado can't go 7 games without a point for crying out loud. So if he's already 3 games without a point, I'm banking that he's going to get at least 2 this week.
I think that's called gambler's remorse or something like that.
so Junior's going for that
I
push
don't
this
actually
week.
gamble, so I'll gamble here, right?
So here we go. So the schedule for you guys to keep in mind. Teams that are playing 4 games: Calgary, Detroit, LA, Islanders, Flyers, Kraken, and Canucks. Players to stay away from: the teams that only play 2 games this week: Ottawa, San Jose, and Toronto. And there goes our waiver wire pickup.
So that was the quickest waiver wire pickup ever. Because we weren't allowed to talk during it. But I think it's because he realized that we're at 50 minutes in.
Oh, wow.
Simply because you spoke way too long about that real trade. But what are we going to do?
But like, it's rare that happens
rare.
in the season.
It's-
I think it was merited that we spoke that much about
But now
it.
we have about 5 trades to go through that happened.
Yeah,
in
we'll
actual
do our
fantasy land.
partial breakaway off
Guys,
air.
by the way, before we get started to the surgeoning of these trades, because I think it's very important that we do surgeon these trades that just happened.
The
Go ahead.
surgeonization.
Is there a doctor in the house? Is there a doctor in the house?
I'm a doctor.
I'm a doctor.
I just wanted to mention, listen, Elliot Friedman, if you're going to use our words, because I know you listen to this podcast, okay, so let's not kid ourselves. You listen to this podcast because you need fantasy advice, because you need help in fantasy land. So if you're going to use our word surgeoning, which he did in 32 Thoughts, the podcast, by the way, surgeoning a roster, he said.
I don't know if he said surgery.
Just be quiet and let me finish this take, okay? I want some royalties, or at least mention us on 32
Yeah.
the podcast.
Say, look, I listened to this partial breakaway podcast.
They're a bunch of amateurs. They're horrible. They never played in the league.
But sometimes they have nice things like surgeoning.
and they have better hair than me. At the end of the day, just give us that. You know, like this guy went and added Kyle Bustakis just to make his hair look even worse than it is. So I don't know. Give him some.
That was
some love.
Nick's rant to Elliot Freeman.
Yes, absolutely. You know, give us some love here. You know, don't steal our work.
Go ahead,
Anyways, let's talk about some trades that occurred, and I'm going to kind of rapid fire these trades because these are more related to our fantasy leagues that we're in, but might be interesting for you because you might get some takes out of this that actually help you with your fantasy league or your thought process. And maybe you turn around and say these trades are silly, and Nick, you traded way too much, or Vince, you traded way too much, or Junior, you traded way too much. So I kind of want to take your take on this, guys, and feel free to discuss at any point in time. This is why we do this podcast. It's a discussion-based podcast on fantasy hockey. We love talking fantasy. So first trade, we'll mention our DPR trade. So Dauber Prospects radio trade. Dauber Prospects report now, actually. So we trade away, Partial Breakaway Podcast trades away Taves,
Devin Taves.
not Jonathan, yes, Devin, and Gustav Forsling, who, again, this is a very deep league. So these 2 players are starters, and they're pretty decent starters, even though they're both having kind of off years, right? And because we lost Jarry, we traded for Connor Ingram. We're hoping we're buying low on Connor Ingram here. Edward Saleh, Czech Republic player, played very well in the U20s this year. Radek Boksung, Oliver Bonk, who I think is going to be at least in the same sphere as Taves and Forsling when he becomes a regular. And we got a roster player in Gavrikov, just because we needed a little bit of roster. Due to this trade, we were also able to call up Matichuk, who is starting right now, at least in Columbus for the time being. So that was our trade in the Dauber Prospects report league. Guys, how did you feel about the trade? And we'll let the audience comment on it as well.
Listen, it's a very deep league, like you said. So like hits, counts,
And we're in a
block
rebuild.
shots. Yeah. So we inherited a team. So we decided that with the team we inherited, it needed some surgeoning. So we decided that we were gonna base our concept on younger players and see how far along they can come to develop. I think we picked up two very good young players in Sally and Bunk. I think Ingram. I just don't. I was very confident with Ingram at the beginning of the year
So was I.
until he got injured, and then Valmaki.
So it wasn't really an
I
injury.
was gonna get to that.
it was an injury.
No,
He
it was
lost his mom.
it was a personal matter.
Okay, so I thought it was an injury.
So he was going through some mental health things.
Okay.
And I mean, it's fair to call it a mental health thing when
Yeah.
you lose a loved one like that. So
And they
he,
kept it under the rug
Yeah.
for quite a bit until he returned. Once he returned, then he divulged it in an interview.
Which
So-
is fantastic from a team perspective too.
Yeah, nobody let it out.
Yeah,
no insider.
Guys,
no any of
preseason
that.
he was doing amazing, and then this kind of happened to him.
The only thing is
he dropped. Obviously, I mean,
he's
It was a
due-
buy low candidate in
He's
terms
due
of
buy low
for, he's due for a contract. So I think this is where we're gonna find out: is Utah gonna go with him, or is he still gonna be a 1B or backup? So, but I think at the end of the day, like you said, Taves and Forsling were good players for us, but weren't performing to the standards we wanted. And at this point, it's not like we're competing for anything. So we might as well take up young players and see what we can develop out of them.
Yeah, I agree. Like you said, we're rebuilding. Taves and Forsling won't be of service for us for when we're ready to make a run. I think Bonk can become a Taves or a Forsling. Gavrikov helps us right now to he's a monster of block shots. So
yeah, he fills a gap for us.
He fills a gap for us that we lose in Forsling and Devin Taves a little bit. And like you guys said, Connor Ingram, I liked him. He went through some personal matters. I think his value is still high, and he's been not bad since he's returned. And Edward Saleh has a high ceiling. If he could just put it all together consistently, it'll be a great addition. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Possibly
from there.
a top 6 player in the NHL.
Yeah, and Seattle doesn't have a lot of
Like a
those
top-
play-breaking ability players, right? So now they have Tijay Gilna, Cat, and
Utah, you
and
mean,
if
not
they,
Seattle.
yeah, Utah. Sorry. Oh, yeah, shit. I get them confused all the
Yeah, it's-
freaking time.
You go, Nick.
Yeah,
so
I've
who
noticed
does
that.
Utah have?
Doesn't matter.
All
All
right.
right. Moving
No,
on
wait,
to
we're
the-
talking about Seattle.
Oh boy. Oh man. Okay. Get this guy off the
He'll
pod.
be nice with Catton, maybe. Anyways, okay. Moving
Guys,
on.
next trade that we're going to talk about.
Terrible.
So these are LPHL trades here, although nobody seemed to have added my JT Miller trade in Llama. But anyways,
Okay. So
whatever.
Start with that just right away.
I don't remember it, so you're going to have to look it up while I do the LPHL trade here. So LPA trade, Junior LPHL, you went ahead and traded for Kirill Marchenko and a second-round pick. And me and you were actually in a battle to try to get Kirill Marchenko. A big reason why I wanted him is his salary cap. He has 3 years at $3.8 million, and he's producing at an 87-point pace right now, which is absolutely phenomenal for him. Is this his breakout? I thought it is. I bought into the breakout. I offered Gabe Perreault. I offered Jiricek, and I offered a first-round pick in 2026, which is a nice draft year as well. But I ended up losing to Junior over here, who offered Elias Pettersson and a first in 2026 for Marchenko and a second in 2026. So listener Bamia was the one that traded with you. Big reason why he accepted your trade. Part of it had to do with the fact that he said Elias Pettersson is one of his favorite players. He's owned him for years in several other leagues. Second reason is because he has to drop a certain amount of players, and your trade had one superstar as opposed to my trade that had several top prospects. So why don't you talk to us about how happy you are in that trade?
I'm very happy.
All right, that's enough. No, go ahead.
No, well, so obviously I'm a contender and he's I don't want to say pretender, but
he's
he's
expansion.
he's a
Expansion.
rebuilder. He was an
Expansion
expansion team. So he's filled with all these young guys with high potentials. And Elias Pettersson kind of gives him that young star that he can grow his younger players with. The reason I wanted Marchenko is because I need to win now. And I don't think Pettersson will turn it around this year. I'm going on the assumption he won't. Not to the point that Marchenko can keep up anyway. So
It's a big piece to give up for sure.
yeah. So like my idea behind it was two things. I need to win now because I'm there. So I had a big lead. I had at least a 50 to 60 point lead on London for a while. I think I might have been close to 100 points from you at one point. And now I'm 70 points behind Nick. So Nick is in first place. I'm in second. And right up my tail is London, listener Umbi. So Nick has won 4 out of 5 years. The 1 year he hasn't won, I actually won. I'm fed up. I'm clearly fed up, and like I'm close enough that I have to make a move. And sometimes I get too scared to go all in. And this year I did that, and we'll get to my other move after. But maybe the biggest element of this trade was that I went from $11.6 million in cap as a cap hit to 3.85 for this year and 2 more years.
That's a big.
In terms of production differences, I think I'll take that maybe reduction in production for when Pettersson's at his highest value. Maybe. But at least I'm getting it at 3.85.
Because if Marchenko continues at 87-point paces, I don't know how much more Elias Pettersson is really gonna.
And that's a team that I think will get better and better. Whereas Vancouver, I'm not sure what's happening there right now.
It looks like a rebuild. What do you think about his trade? And did he give up too much? Did he give up?
By the way, the picks were. Mine's a high first round pick, and his is the first pick of the second round. So it was almost like a two spot switch, 2 or 3 spot switch.
That's enough out of you. All right, go ahead.
Just to say that I meant.
I think in this,
It's 2025.
I think in this trade, Elias Pettersson will never, fantasy wise, put up the points that a player who's making $11.5 million should be putting up. I don't think he'll ever get back to his 100 points season. I believe he can give you 80 to 90 points a season, but I just think he's just mentally fragile. And this is concerning because any little thing that ruffles his feathers could affect his points per game playing. So I understand what Bamia was doing, because as a rebuilding team, you always want that one superstar that you can build around. But I just feel that 11.5 million for Pettersson, I think he bailed you out.
So in 2022, Elias Pettersson had 102 points. That was his best season ever.
Yeah.
In 2023, he got 89 points.
Which people were saying was an off year in 80 games.
This year, he's on pace for 59.
Yeah.
59 points.
But
That is a player for $11.6 million. That's a player that you got saved by getting rid of for this year.
For this year, yeah.
I don't know next year. Is he going to go back to 90 points? Vancouver's a little bit of.
We'll see how he does in Buffalo.
But for him, does it really matter? Because let's say next year Marchenko doesn't put up the 87 points he's paced to put up, and he puts up 70 points at 3.5 million.
You'll take the 70 points.
You take the 70 points at 3.5 million, then you take the 90 points at 11.5 million.
Yeah.
Because you can recuperate those 20 points with another player that has. So I just feel, I understand where Bamia was going, where you need that superstar.
It's hard to measure because of the fact that Elias Pettersson also is one of his favorite players.
Yeah, of course.
So it's hard to put a number on that.
Gotta take emotions out of the trades, my friend.
All right, next trade, guys. Did you have anything to add on that? Or?
Nope.
Okay.
I said my
Next
piece.
trade, Vince.
Yeah.
You traded a first, a second, and Korchinski for Nikishin and Barzal. So again, a first, a second, Korchinski for Nikishin and Barzal.
And the first is about anywhere between 5 and 7.
Well, it could be 4.
Anywhere between 4 and 7.
So it's not a bad first.
No.
Okay. What Junior, what do you think about his trade? And then I'll ask Vince what he feels.
Look, like I told you guys in the group chat, Nikishin and this AJ, in this case Halifax here, he also has Chikrin. And every year, about twice a year, maybe even 3 times a year, I go and inquire and try to acquire Nikishin or Chikrin. And I always fail, and
You're not alone,
I
by
get
the way.
rejected. So I really like Nikishin. I think Barzal was a perfect candidate to get this year because I think because of his injury and his struggles this year, GMs are more likely to maybe part ways with him. And I think you did good to take advantage of that. But I do think you've paid a fair price. But I think I would have done the same deal as you in acquiring Nikishin and Barzal.
So I'll agree with that. I think you paid a fair price, and I'm really high on Nikishin. I think Nikishin coming in next year, you're talking about somebody that's going to take over PP1 for Carolina, who even if they don't sign Rantanen, is still a very good team, a competitive team. And Barzal, you're buying low because he started off the year so poorly that his numbers don't look great. But if you look at his last 14 days on Fantrax, he's performing the way that he performed last year. So to me, you bought low on a Barzal, which is good. Korchinski, I'm not convinced he's going to be a high point producing player right now. He might turn it around, but I'm not convinced that he's going to be that star.
So, I've been rebuilding in this league for 2 years now, in LPHL, and I've been trying to get my first round pick this year from Junior since the beginning of the year, and he's just being an asshole about it. So, and I'm like second to last, so it's definitely top. It's
It's a lottery pick.
Yeah, it's
Our
a
lottery
pick.
is top the bottom 3.
So this is where I changed my stance. I looked at my team. I have way too many young players on my team. Way too many young players that still have question marks on whether they're gonna be even relevant fantasy-wise in the NHL. So I decided that I had the cap room to go get a superstar. So I offered this trade to Nick for one of his players, to Junior, to Giamumbi, and then AJ approached me for Barzal. The one thing that I was with AJ was I wasn't taking Barzal alone. He had to add someone. He had Nishikin, whatever his name is. Nikishin on his team, which is coming out of Russia with high hopes. Now, there's another player who came out of Russia with high hopes, was Romanov from Montreal.
No, it's not even the same.
Yeah, I know, but
It's
when
not
he
the same.
came. So,
You're talking about a rookie compared to somebody that's 23 years old and already the best player in KHL.
but so, listen, to me, Barzal, the 9.25 million, I'm willing to take it because I have so much cap space. I'm like, I trade to try to get to the bottom of the cap
cap
in this
floor.
league.
And every
the
week he
floor.
asks, guys, what's the floor?
So
Luckily, Fantrax shows
So
it.
finally, Fantrax shows what the floor is. So yeah, so I think Barzal is a phenomenal player. I don't think he's a 100-point player, but I think he could be a point per game player. He just plays with the Islanders, so that's just the downfall. But the big thing was that he was a right winger. I could not take another center on my.
He plays center right wing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
He's
But
eligible
but
for
that's
both.
the first thing I had asked AJ is it the first year that he's a center right wing? Because I go, if he's a center, I can't take him. I already have too many centers on my team, too many young centers that I can't get rid of.
Yeah, because he plays with Horvat sometimes.
So, and AJ said, listen, the last 3 years he's been center right wing. I checked it out, and it is true. He's been center right wing. So that made the Barzal.
A man of his word, AJ. Honest man.
And listen, I was high on Korchinski. I drafted him really high. He couldn't crack the Chicago lineup now that they're where they are. I don't know. I feel he might be a little overrated, but he's also only 18 years old. So
Yeah, quick question: Did you think of asking for Perek over Nikishin, or you went straight to Nikishin?
I knew he wasn't giving me Perek.
Okay.
But Perek would have been my first choice, but I knew he wasn't giving me Perek.
All right. Next trade. Junior trades a first, a third, Tuck, and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen.
I like how you said it.
Ukko-Pekka for JT Miller. So a first, a third, Tuck, and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen for JT Miller. To me, And I'll tell you right away, I think this is a little bit of a hope and a prayer. It's you're trying to throw a Hail Mary, but you're not Mahomes. So, what do you think about this trade? And then we'll touch on the
I
person that
think
actually
for Junior competing as a competitor in the league, I think JT Miller will give him a better chance to winning this league than Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen or Tuck or the first and third that he's giving away. I think JT Miller is going to get traded. It's not if he will get traded. I know Vancouver's been saying no, he's going to get traded. And even if he doesn't get traded, he'll still produce with Vancouver more than Tuck will with Buffalo or Luke. And goalie wise, he's Luukkonen wasn't even starting for him with the two goalies he's got, which is Ottinger and Wolf. So, listen, as a competitor, I think it's a fantastic move. And for Quebec, who got what they got for JT Miller, is unbelievable because everybody knows that JT Miller was on the block and no one knows. Everybody knows the baggage he comes with, but he still got a first, third. Tuck, who could be a very reliable forward.
I had actually offered a trade also for JT Miller, but he wasn't interested in the players I had offered. So
I think Junior paid for JT Miller, but at the end, I think he's going to give him a better chance to win the league than Tuck or Luukkonen will.
Okay, Junior, your final thoughts on that trade. What did you think, and what were you thinking?
So I was in a position where I had a lot of assets. I had Vince's lottery pick. I had my own first round pick. I had 3 second-round picks or 2 second-round picks. I had 3 second-round picks next year. So I was a bit loaded in terms of draft capital and players that I knew I wouldn't be able to keep for next year. So I built some good depth in goalie with Ottinger, Wolf, and Joseph Woll. And I had UPL. So between UPL and Joseph Woll, I would have had to make a decision next year. GM Tony or listener Tony liked UPL, so I included him in the deal because I was also willing to offer Trey Augustine instead. But he went with what's it called? UPL. Look, JT Miller in this specific league in last 3 years has averaged 3.8 fantasy points, 3.3 fantasy points, and 3.7 fantasy points. My comparison for JT Miller in the street is to Alex Tuck, who maybe hit 3 fantasy points only once. So that's a huge upgrade for me. I know I'm getting him in a season where he's not producing much, but I was kind of a little bit thinking next year and future years. Also, long-term security with his contract at $8 million, I think is pretty fair. But more importantly, like you said, like the hope and a prayer, I'm hoping one of him or Patterson gets traded and this is all over and he goes back to playing his regular style of hockey. And that's what it is in the end. I'll have decisions to make in terms of cap-related decisions next year, but for the time being, I think the worst that could happen is he produces as well as Tuck did this year.
So I made a trade for JT Miller in Project Llama, which I think you brought up. For very similar reasons, I'm hoping that he does get traded sooner rather than later. Although Patrick Alvin has come out and said, maybe there is no trade this year and it's an off-season thing. But it's come close a few times already for JT Miller to be moved. So I'm kind of feeling that it's going to be this year.
Well, you traded a 4th-round pick in 2025, Rasmus Anderson, Alexei Protas, who you signed as a free agent this year, which is free money. Trevor Connolly, a rookie drafted by the Vegas Golden Knights last year, for JT Miller and Cale Clague, which I guess Clague was roster dump. Yeah.
So yeah, that's for me. JT Miller, like Rasmus Anderson, is a legit defenseman, but not producing very well right now in Calgary. And although he started the year on fire, really Trevor Connolly was the big piece that he was one of my first picks of the draft. But yeah, I felt comfortable giving that up again, thinking JT Miller will be traded before the deadline. So a little bit of a hope and a prayer for me as well. I maybe didn't give up as much as you, but I still gave up. It's very different leagues as well.
Very
right?
different
very
leagues.
Different leagues. Okay. Listener Bamya trades away a 2nd-round pick and Stuart Skinner to Halifax. Listener AJ for Morgan Riley and Thatcher Demko. Guys, can you give me what is going on here?
Wow. I think it's no risk move for Montreal Royals for Bamia here. You could potentially get a franchise goalie in Thatcher Demko if his injury issues are not chronic. And Morgan Riley's having an off year, but this is his first off year in the last 4 years. So I don't think this is the norm for him. There should be a bounce back somewhere. I think it's low risk, high reward for Montreal. I think Stuart Skinner, it's been out there that Edmonton's always looking for a goalie. Maybe they get that goalie and Stuart Skinner is not that full-time guy anymore. For a second-round pick, I think it was worth the risk.
Yeah, so do you have any thoughts on this trade?
Let's see. Bamia picked up a goalie who any game could be out for life from the NHL. But not like in Demko. It's what his knee injuries we've all been that they told us. And Morgan Riley, who's a guy, I think he's over 30 now. So can he get back to that? It's still a cap league, so it's $7 million. You still need that defenseman to produce. Can he? Listen, he's having an off year and he's still playing with the great players he's playing. So for Halifax, he picked up a goalie that is going to start and going to get his wins with Edmonton, plus a second-round pick that we never know what can be out there. The only good thing about the LPHL is you can always drop players at the end of the season. So at the end of the day for Bamia, it's no risk because Morgan Riley doesn't produce next year. You just drop him and you got $7 million.
Or he keeps him for cap purposes to hit the cap floor.
All right. Last trade of the day that we're going to surgeonize here. And by the way, we still had the waiver wire pickups for our actual our actual league, co-host league. Maybe we do that off air.
I said we would do it off air.
Okay, maybe we do that off air because you went really, really fast.
Boom. No, because he said we were doing off air. That's why he did.
Oh, yeah? Okay, maybe I don't listen.
Well, listen to the podcast tomorrow.
Okay, I will. Nick, that's me.
Like and subscribe, Nick. Share the content.
I'm the only one? No, imagine. I go on all my different emails and I like and subscribe.
I listen to it on every single podcast platform.
Nick is the Kevin Durant of Partial Breakaway podcast. Has all the fake accounts.
Nick trades away Mattychuk. That hurt me.
I know
Gabe Perreault. That hurt me.
I know that did.
Zibanejad and a first in 2026. Mattychuk, Perreault, Zibanejad, first in 2026 to Winnipeg Bears. Listener Johnny Mavs for Sebastian Aho, a second and a third. Junior, go ahead.
I think in Italian we say la cacarel. I think you got a bit of that when I made those deals for JT Miller and no, I'm just kidding. But really, I think you paid a more than decent price. I know how much you like Mattychuk. I know how much you like Gabe Perreault, and I know how much you like Ryan Leonard. And you really liked Catton, and you ended up trading Catton in the trade for Seth Jarvis. And that was okay because you still had all these guys. So when I saw you got rid of Mattychuk and Gabe Perreault for here, I was like, okay, this guy, he's like, I'm here now. I got to win. I got to go get this guy. Pairing with Rantanen. I like it for both. I really like it for both. I think Winnipeg in this league was going to enter a bit of cap trouble. He had a lot of players that underachieved this year, which kind of set him back because we all expected him to have a boost forward. So from his perspective, getting Gabe Perreault, which should be in the NHL next year, Mattychuk, which is already getting his feet wet, so next year will be a little bit more seasoned. And Zibanejad could have a turnaround. He might get traded, he might not, but the Rangers have turned it around, so maybe he picks it up, and maybe next year is a whole new year for him. And he gets a first in 2026. Who knows what happens then? I think for both parties, I kind of really like the trade, especially after the moves I made. I think you kind of needed to do something, and I think this was a good move for both.
I think this is a contender's trade. You're contending for a championship. You need to give up assets to pick up superstars. You know, Aho is a hand-me-down 80 to 82 point, a point per game player guaranteed. If he has a good year, which you're expecting that Rantanen there is going to boost his points up. Even if it's by 10 points, he goes from a 80-point to 90-point player now, which makes a huge difference in fantasy. So I think it's I don't know why Winnipeg traded Aho. I wouldn't have traded Aho, but his return is he wins the trade if Zibanejad comes back to being Zibanejad that he was last year or the year before, which is putting up 70, 75 points. I think both rookies he picked up are high-end rookies. Gabe Perreault, you guys are a little higher on him than I am. Matachuk, I believe, especially with Jiricek out, he still has Werenski in front of him, who's having a phenomenal year. But I think he's the next guy up for Columbus. So and a first in 2026, which is supposed to be a unbelievable draft from what we're hearing. So
I'm gonna get crucified by listener Bats and some other guys because they're gonna say that you got to look at your checks and your balances. At the end of the day, Peter Pete. Yeah, that's his team name, but it's also philosophy. You trade away potential stars for one star, then you end up not balancing when these guys actually become something and Aho stays who he is, whatever. For me, a big thing was that Sebastian Aho was at 9.1 million, whatever he is right now, but producing at point per game.
consistent. Every year.
Zibanejad, even though he started bad, I thought that maybe now that the Rangers are going to start picking it up again, that he's going to start improving.
9.75 Aho.
9.75, yeah. Zibanejad is at 49-point pace. And that's not good enough for a team that wants to win another championship, right? So, and he was my starter. It's not like he was somebody that was just on my fourth line. Like, he was my starter. So, 49-point pace just wasn't cutting it for me. And getting rid of an underperforming player is not necessarily what you want to do because you're selling low. Mm-hmm. But the year before, he was at 73 points, which is only about 9 points difference than what Sebastian Aho was this year, right? So if he bounces back, like you said, this looks great for Johnny Mavs.
Yeah. But you got younger because
But I also
Aho is
got 4 years younger.
Yeah, exactly. So
27 compared to 31 years old.
32 soon. So that's what I'm saying. It's Zibanejad.
It bought me a few more years.
Yeah, you didn't do this for a
Once players
30-year-old.
hit
That would have
30
been a little bit different. Then it would have been really...
Once players hit 30 years old, there's those players that just take a downfall, and there's players that stay steady. So Zibanejad seems like he's on he took a complete downfall.
But is it Zibanejad or is it all of New York that just...
Well, no, look at Panarin. Panarin is still...
yeah, but he's the
still doing
superstar.
bad.
He's the superstar.
Oh,
but
bad. I mean,
no,
compared to what Panarin usually does, I mean...
But what I'll,
So Panarin is an 89-point pace compared to 120 the year before.
Yeah. Listen, New York Star is slow. There's been a lot of internal problems with there, especially with the GM.
What a star Panarin is.
Yeah. But listen,
He should be
I
14
tried to
million.
acquire him. I actually offered a first, a second, and Velarde, and I was declined. But the one thing I'll say about checks and balances, because that's a very good debate, and maybe it's something we could expand on next time. I'm of the type like you, like there's no balancing when you want to win. And in a league like LPHL, it's different because you can go get a high-end prospect even in the third round this upcoming draft because we draft free agents and rookies in the
it's
same
a little
draft.
bit different for
It's a little bit
LPHL.
different. But in Llama, then I would definitely consider checks and balances because to recuperate that will take you years.
Yes.
Whereas we can do that within the next
Or
draft.
you got to get really lucky on your second rounders if you get rid of your first, which I've gotten lucky in the past, but geez, you can't do it all the time. It starts catching up to you.
Yeah.
peeps, follow us, like us.
Woo! That was a big
Like
episode.
us.
Like
Please
us.
like us. No,
Just-
just hit the like button. You don't have to actually like us.
Share our content.
Share our contact, like, subscribe, and if you're interested in some merch, let us know.
Oh, I got to wake up in 6 hours.
Have a good night, peeps.
Have a good night, everybody. Have a good week. JT Miller to the house.